So you have it for a site schedule? And can I have
I'd like to welcome everyone to our August board meeting. This time I would like to say this past Saturday evening, JCSD 1 lost a longtime bus driver and activities driver, John Driscoll. John was more than a bus driver. He was a champion for all kids, #1 Bison Buckaroo fan. John not only knew the kids on his bus, but he took special interest in each and every one of them. When John was driving a bus to a sporting event, he would not only know the final score, but he knew how each athlete played. No matter the outcome, John had something positive to say to each athlete and coach. John will be missed by so many, but his legacy of caring for students of JCSD 1 will live on. At this time, would you please stand for a moment of silence as we remember John and his family. We will follow after saying the pledge. Please join with me in saying the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Again, on behalf of the JCSD 1 Board of Trustees, we'd like to welcome everyone to the August 14th mental board meeting. The board thanks all of those taking time out of your busy summer schedules to attend this meeting either in person or via streaming or listening on 307 Net. It's hard to believe that at the September board meeting, school had been in session almost 3 weeks. As you notice, board and all the admin reports, the principals did a nice job of thanking the grounds and maintenance and custodial staff for getting their schools ready to go. We would like to also thank all the admin, the directors, and the superintendent who have spent these last weeks closing the books on the 22-23 school year. This past month has been a challenge on the business department and her staff. Even a tougher challenge when they lost internet connection for 2 crucial days. The other day I was downtown and I was excited when visiting with a teacher concerning a workshop she took over the summer. Her statement was, "What she learned will change the world." And I go, really? What are you talking about? She had taken a reading workshop. So this made me excited. So as you can tell, our young and old, our not so old, teachers are ready to go. It truly takes a village to prepare for the school year. So students, we welcome you back for the 23-24 school year. And parents, your job is huge and we appreciate all you do. If you have cell phones or need a conversation, we ask you to step outside as always. Would we have any public comment, Heidi? Okay, roll call again. We're missing Marcia and Casey. Casey hopefully will join us soon. Do we have any additions or do we have any additions to the agenda? So may I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved. Or
I'll second it.
We have a first, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved. Principals report. Mr. Oski, I will let you kind of tell that.
All right, so we are starting a new process per your directions. So there's a video link on each one of the superintendent's reports. And so with that, we're just going to leave it open. We're not going to bring each one up. We're going to start highlighting schools next month in KC, which that means Jake is kicking us off again with that excitement. So just in general, are there any potential individual questions you, the board, might have from any leadership in this year tonight?
I do have a question. Did anybody else have trouble getting onto some of the videos? I could get on Lori's really easy, but some of the other ones that asked for permission, and I never got permission.
I got permission real fast when I asked for it, but I had to ask.
That was
Well,
the
they
only
tell you
one.
to ask, and then it says they'll send you an email. Give you permission.
So we will check to that link on how we go.
You had trouble, Cody? Because there's a couple of them.
I got them all, except for the one
I figured.
I know, I have great.
So anyhow, that was the only thing I would say, Charles, is, wasn't able to get information out.
I did like taking a walk, Dr. Hanson. I liked to go on a walk, that was good. It was kind of neat this morning, a lot of admin already making plans on how they're going to do the next month, so I lit a fire.
Okay.
So,
We'll talk about the fire later.
It's a meeting from the principals.
director reports.
All right, facilities, you were up, John. Questions or highlights for John?
Mostly a highlight. But like Jan said, every report but your own complimented you and your team. Sounds like you guys had a big tail summer and did really good work. So thank you. Still working on it.
And I love what you said, we're going to have a warm winter in KC. Teachers going to be fun.
I hope so.
Right now, I can't cool it. We're working on it. We hope to have it cool.
Is there anything you wanted to highlight?
No, it's just, like I put in there, the support of my team, everyone we had. It takes a lot of people to keep things moving that I touch. So, whether my people touch things, from the business office to Dakota, a lot of people. Planning for next summer now. Pretty big projects on the books for next year.
Thank you, John.
What are they off the top of your head, John?
We're looking at, if we get this COPS grant, we'll be doing all new belt intercoms, some classroom systems in Buffalo High School, BC, and Cloud Peak Elementary. And all new, finish the access control across the district to one platform, Cloud platform, at Cloud Peak, Buffalo High School, and Miller Elementary.
I know you had a deal in there about the elevator. Is it functional yet? At the high school?
Our new goal is graduation of this year.
Take that long.
We are waiting 8 months on the required
On the required.
shunt disconnect for the emergency shutdown. 8 months out. Give me one.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So we did have a couple students last school year after the elevator went out. And we housed those kids downstairs, and teachers just swung by to give instruction downstairs. It worked out great. It's not ideal, but kids did super well. So we work with every kid that's got an issue that way. And we expect that we'll be right. I mean, we're going to have some injuries, we're going to have some surgeries, and we will take care of those kids on the lower level.
With what come of graduation, I think that worked pretty well. Communicating, finding, getting people where they need to go. But it did involve some students, some volunteers. But it's one of those things that's out of our control. We're at the mercy of supply. So.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ricky, you're up.
Ricky, did you want to kind of go through the milk prices?
I think that's next.
Okay. You want to wait?
It's up to you.
We'll wait.
Madam Chair, Ricky, I was surprised at some of the lunch items that the kids didn't like. Like a pulled pork sandwich. They didn't like that. So I was surprised at some of that.
I was too. On some of them I was. So we're gonna give it a go and try to do what they do want.
Yeah. I know, like, it works.
We're going to be running that line. We're taking every 4 weeks.
I mean, that's pretty typical of most school districts, 4 or 5. So, I mean, if not, we'll just try to add some more things.
So Ricky, was one of them that I saw, they didn't care for sloppy joes. That kind of struck me as interesting. You get
And I
quite a
think
bit of donated.
right, and so that one was tough for me to take off the donation. But I think, you know, we can try it again, and maybe it's just our seasoning or lack of, and we can just.
Yeah, because that's a relatively easy to do in most people.
For what it's worth, there was a huge cry of discontent at my house. It said, "Sloppy Joes, what do you mean they're going?" So,
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Technology. Questions for Christy?
Christy, you ready to rock and roll?
Ready or not?
Got all the Chromebooks and everything. How many students did you end up having?
I think plus Gabby, she did 20 hours.
Any questions?
That was great to see him.
Thanks, Christy. Bill. Any questions for Bill?
Well, Bill, I probably like to, I was watching the national news the other day, and there's a school district that they canceled school for the first 2 or 3 weeks because they had no students.
That's a nationwide problem.
They just canceled them all. And in Denver, they were only guaranteeing to pick up their kids last week, the other times.
really let them know.
Darn, I'm surprised. I kind of
Surprise.
I think on a rotation.
I think it might be a surprise.
Are we running the same routes as last year?
Yes, so we're gonna have that limited routes that we had last year. That will not include the city or town routes. But we are able to accomplish, I believe, if this house of cards that we've built remains standing, that we'll be able to accomplish all the routes. We're still one route driver short, but we're gonna accomplish that through substitutes and activity drivers. So we've worked out a schedule with some substitutes, like a Monday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. And those students won't see the same face every day, but they'll have some consistency. And so it's not just a random person picking them up.
Madam Chair, yes.
Is there, so after hearing Jody saying about the North Dakota not even having buses, is there in this state or within our district, is there rules of a part of faith that says that we do have to provide bus transportation? Or like, what does that look like?
If it's written into their IEP or it's part of a 504, and we have a responsibility to bring them, so those would be if they qualify and where they're at. So those would have to be written.
But otherwise, if they don't have an IEP or a 504, if they're not on that. I'm just asking.
No, I'm just saying, we're limited to what we have, and so
Yeah.
those would become the priority, and then we'd have to prioritize from the state down of what that looks like. Obviously, at-risk families and different things as you go through that, but first would come up, what are the needs of the special needs students that are on IEP, what are the 504s, and the at-risk, and then you would prioritize it down.
But is busing required or is not?
It's funded by the state of Wyoming. So in that process, there's a funding model, there's where you can pick them up and can't pick them up, but is it required of us? No, there's a funding mechanism. You can provide that under certain guidelines.
So Travis, if you didn't have a bus, I suppose everybody would have to apply for isolation pay and get reimbursement.
If you followed within those guidelines. And it's a tricky conversation because it is funded, but it's not required under certain conditions.
That's why I
It
asked.
is a state response.
So we're funding it, but it's not provided.
We're attempting to provide what we can. It's reimbursable. We have to go ahead and put that into play too. You get reimbursed for last year, so you're always a year behind. So it's the same thing. It's a reimbursable of what your expenses were this year. Our last year is what your budget is for this year. So you're always a year behind.
But Charles, I hear what Jody said. I don't know if the things are different there, and I've heard the equity piece. So no doubt it's paid because you can go downtown and drive a dump truck for $30 to $35 an hour. So we don't want to pay that because it's not equitable, but yet transportation is 100% reimbursable. So other than equity piece, why don't we get the wages up that's a little bit more competitive? And I know it's a tough deal, but I'm just asking a question.
You know, I'll do whatever you want me to do as a board, but we got people working for $14.50 an hour.
And I get it.
And they're struggling too, and just because it's
You can't
reimbursable.
make a living on that. I get it, Charles.
Yeah, but it also creates it's a culture that I'm trying to work on.
It's a hostile environment.
It is a hostile environment, because the last 4 weeks I've turned a lot of people down that have come in and wanted to raise. And that consistency across the board. And the reimbursable piece is a reimbursable a year later too.
Correct.
So when you do that piece, you do it across the board. That's why we're trying to do, guaranteed hours. We're guaranteeing people hours with some amazing benefits. It's $23,000 for a family, or $22,000 for that insurance piece, and I get that, and we can always restudy that. But when I walked into the district, and you would compress the salary schedule, and you gave people a huge raise, and somebody 10-cent raise, or in some cases a 2-cent raise, okay, there was no consistency with how we do it. So if we're going to raise one, I would just have a hard time, but I'll follow the direction of the board is. When we give a raise, that salary schedule that was created, which may not be perfect yet, but it's consistent across the board.
So Bill, if I can ask you a question, when people come in, does anybody ever say, I would drive for this amount?
No, not usually. It's usually based upon hours. How many hours will I get? What will my schedule look like? And then, of course, the benefits. Benefits are huge. They talk a lot about that. I'd like to add what Charles has to say. When we look at our schedule, and we do that comparatively across the state of Wyoming, we have a really good schedule. But we also have a problem statewide with transportation drivers.
And just to add to it, I had a business owner come to me and said, I'm struggling competing with you. So when we raise, then they're going to have to raise theirs because they're going to want to keep them. So then it turns into I'm going to raise my wages, but then I'm going to pass that on to the customer, which is going to have to pay more because they were just blunt. And I appreciate the conversation, but when you raise your prices, it's causing me to have to raise mine, which then is a pass on to the consumer, and it's just a trickle down effect. But Connie says it all the time, well, welcome to public education. It doesn't matter what our cost is, it's still our same pool of money. But Dave, I'm on board with, I know where we're at, but it's a tough topic.
I think it's something that we should take a serious look at. We have a finite number of drivers. And if there's some other staff that's jealous of the but $14 an hour, those other people then be a bus driver. That's simple. So once we fill all the bus driver slots, then that position's not available anymore. And they can either continue working. I don't like the idea of shutting down the idea because we have some lower tier staff that are going to be jealous of what somebody else is making. This is a key job, and that's why we can't find anybody working.
And Randy, not to argue, but I got paras that have 5-year degrees and have teaching certification that make $14 an hour and they're working kids 8 hours a day, and they're a specialty job too. And part of that process is balancing that consistency. But I'm also going to come back. I honestly don't believe when I hear other businesses they're shutting down because they don't get drivers. Is raising the salary going to get the drivers that we do need? When we're going to be competing with the public who's going to raise their prices to keep their drivers, where do I find that balance? And I'm not closing the door, but the goal is to still continue because not only do we need bus drivers, we have a lot of kids that need teachers that have support with paras in their classroom. Food service, you don't feed them. You might have a kids. We have a custodian group that we're hiring an outside consulting employees to come in because if the building's not clean, I mean, there's just so many mechanisms. Our facilities guys and our grounds people, they're kind of in the same boat. Yeah, I'm not closing the door. I just say when we look at it, we have to come across the board. It's kind of consistency with technology, facilities, all of them. And it's the same with our certified staff. It's not just the classified. But we can open that door, but watching the economy and where it's at, knowing some business people that are limiting their services because they can't provide services right now with CDLs. I don't know. Where are they all at? That's my question.
Well, I mean, I think my biggest heartache with it is we're providing services for some of our students right now, not others. Solely because of COVID. And we want to provide bus routes. We should try to provide bus students that live, on the other side of town from school, and they still have to find their way to school. County.
So maybe we can come up with some numbers of what we're serving within the area. We did have some families that were not going all the way out that we put them to that reimbursable piece, but maybe we can come up with some percentages because we kind of oversee the whole picture of what we're providing.
How many students? Okay. When did we start Intech?
I got the job. We stopped doing it. So I can't tell you.
Because I mean, it hasn't been like decades.
Right, it's been very recent that we were doing those. And, a lot of that was the new high school. There was just not a way to get kids
Right.
to and from that school, so we looked at that piece of.
And I'm not saying stop it, I'm just saying that it didn't. Yeah.
So Randy and the board, we'll try to find some data for you to present next time.
Sorry, we'll let you sit down here. Where do we put activity bus drivers? Why? We got activities starting here soon.
Right. That's a very good question. Because those route drivers often take activities as well. So let's look at the base, and that's our substitutes. So we have to keep those subs to come in and cover the routes, so those route drivers can go out on activities. So I see how this is a tiered system. So let's look at the substitutes. We have a pretty good pool of substitutes. However, they are all drivers that are wanting to move into retirement. They're picky and choosing. So when they call up, I may call up and say, hey, Mr. Tom, will you drive? He may say, no, I'm busy that day. So that's when we start playing the shuffle game. It's, more of a shell game to find out how we're going to fit that piece. I am happy to announce, though, that we do have 2 full-time activity drivers in Buffalo and 1 full-time activity driver in KC. So that's more than we had last year because, as you know, Mr. Driscoll was out, and then we moved Karen Zizas as a parent to KC. So we were stumbling there for a little while last spring, but we do have one person that moved out of a route to a full-time activity. And so we have that's the route that's open that we need to cover. So we're taking that person like they can be an activity driver. I will tell you that the activities are coming in right and left right now. Of course, all the activity directors are sending me that spreadsheet and looking at some of those things. And that's where the creativity piece comes in. Hey, can we leave after school so we can run that route and then send that driver? Or is there a possibility that the 7th and 8th grade could go together so we don't have to send 2 buses? So there's going to be a lot of negotiating that we have to do. And it's going to be a day-to-day, trip-to-trip type thing because, like I said, not having the full staff to be able to just say, oh, we've got that covered, we have to pick and choose. And, we're going to do our best. And I think there is going to be this year, there will be some that are going to have to be shut down. But as of right now, our goal is to not do that. So I think we're going to move forward with it. Like I said, in my report, we onboarded 2 new drivers this week. So we're super excited about that. And maybe that's just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe our message is getting out, and we'll get some more people. Because the two that I brought on, we're not even training them. They're coming fully credentialed with experience. So I was like, okay, can you show me your CDL? Can you show me your passenger endorsement? They just had it. And that's a benefit right there. So we don't have that 6-week training piece. And, you know, as a parent, you would be confident to know, oh, wow, she's drove us for 16 years. So that's a lot better than, oh, this is the new guy. This will be his first trip. So we're happy to have them on board.
So, Bill, when you say subs, that's not a mechanic's training, right? It's just a subs.
That's just subs. Okay, so we're trying to avoid, we've got to have a home base. You know, we've got to have a rescue squad. If we send out our rescue squad, including myself, or the drivers, or the mechanics like we were last year, we don't have that piece for safety here in town. So we try and keep them home so that they can go out and help, you know, whether it be another school district from another county coming through and their bus breaks, you know, because we all scratch each other's back on that deal. So we're going to try and avoid using them, but we do have a pretty good pool of subs. Like I said in one of my reports earlier, we didn't really lose anybody. They just sort of moved and shuffled within the system.
So to celebrate, I mean, on the positive, yeah, we're short one route, but we have drivers that are covering it. Last year, it's like we were tucked every week. We were 4 people short from 4 routes being closed down. All the routes have been covered. We have additional people that are going to support on weekends when they have availability. So we're creating a pool. We really are getting there. The one thing that we're not doing is providing the bus for the Boys and Girls Club, which, again, that said it's on their plate. We've looked at that, but we do have some people, and when I bring up the mechanics, we quickly forget that Bill and the mechanics were doing all the driving last year in addition to their other jobs. So now they're able to mechanic and do those jobs. So I think we're at least clicking forward and a little more stable, but it doesn't mean we're satisfied. But and there's a potential of, you know, I know a couple others that want to see how these new ones on board and how they're going, and maybe there's a potential of more. So that's a good thing. So
I've had some interest from several teachers have reached out to me and said that there's a possibility that they would like to drive. Are starting the process with the questions of how much is this going to take, or what's going to be available.
Thank you. Hello, Mr.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Roski, you're up.
Back in. So super excited. We kicked off in the last 2 weeks with a lot of PD around the district. We'll just be honest. I have no idea where the summer went. It was exhausting. Everybody's in the same plate. But the enthusiasm and the excitement that you see in the buildings, what we've seen today with new teacher induction, what Dr. Miller's done and all the staff that's pulled together to kick that off is super exciting. So anything from facilities to technology, excuse me, there's a lot of people that put a lot of work in to kick this year off. They really did. The common phrase is there was no summer, but again, we can't control Mother Nature. We can't control where we were. We're kind of out of that sync of where we are. But if we go back and reflect, we had 90 plus people do a huge training at the end of the school year. We had 50-some people that worked on curriculum and some different things over the summer. We had project-based learning. We have literacy training. We have math training. We have new teacher induction. In addition to all the work that's been being done out here in the business office, it's been a very, very busy summer. So everything from facilities to grounds to custodial to technology, everybody kept showing up. Transportation. They were doing their jobs. Some days there were tears. Days there were laughs, but we all showed up. It was good morning. Here we go, and this is what's best for kids. Our APQC training, kind of what we did there. Ops team, where we're bringing some changes to the district and consistency. We did a 4 o'clock till 8:30 training Sunday night. with the majority of coaches, with Don Julian, as we change the culture and climate, talk about 3D coaching and communication with parents, and that's scheduled throughout the year. Again, let me repeat, Sunday night, we had a large group of coaches that want to learn and grow, that we're doing some things with there, so I'm excited about it. With that, no matter where we are, kids are coming next week, all right? So we need to be prepared. We got things happening in buildings today, tomorrow, and throughout the entire week. I encourage you as a board of trustees, Thursday, that's an eventful day. You can come to the training all day, you can come to the community deal Thursday night. Everything's at the auditorium. We'd love to introduce you and speak if you'd like to. Jan did a great job representing you as a board of trustees today at the new teacher induction program. That was super awesome, and go from there. But unless you have questions for me, we're going to get up tomorrow. We're going to go after it again. And we're going to get ready for kids. And just the energy level among the teachers and what the admin team is doing, and what I'm going to start hearing you reference the ops team, the operational teams throughout the year. Change the format of that a little bit. We're ready to roll. So, any questions from you as a board of trustees?
How many were there this month?
35, I think.
And they get
Plus all
younger
the
every year.
stragglers. What's that?
They get younger every year.
Yeah. So it was good to go on for the next couple days. And we had people up in KC. I mean, district-wide it was there. So there's some collaboration. We had a lot of transition. Connie referenced, we have 30.
Over 35 new people were
putting into the system. I mean, there's some shifting of things that we're moving around, last minute deals, but you know what's been nice is how this admin team has come together and trying to resolve issues and place people where they need to be. And to land with where we're landing right now, we should be ecstatic, because there are districts in the state that are not landing where we're landing. They're landing with kids coming to school without teachers. So I think we're very fortunate with the work that's been done throughout this process. So I appreciate it.
Are all our openings full?
You jinx it. We are full unless am I not aware of something that we're missing here today. We are fully staffed. Except for special ed. She has one.
I have one.
Well, food service. So when you talk teachers in the classroom, we're fully staffed.
Okay, thank you.
Classified, no. Special ed, no. But will we get there? Yes. So that's exciting.
Any more questions?
So on behalf of me as a superintendent and the district, I'd like to present Jan with this plaque that was given to me for her recognition with the Wyoming School Boards Association. So thank you for your service and what you've done. Right?
Thank you.
And by the way, it's her birthday. If you have not had a
Sad to say I'm the oldest person in this room. I know I am. I was really young when I was in this.
I felt bad. Craig had to follow your speech this morning. We should have ended. That was pretty good. Okay, Madam Chair, is there anything you need from me?
No, I don't think so. Who's our next one?
All right. Curriculum. Any questions for Dr. Miller?
Anything you'd like to highlight? I always sometimes don't know what question you want to ask. Would you like to highlight it this one?
It's in the video report, but just excited. We have over 100 new curriculum apps.
Oh, wow.
PLC. So our teachers have been working really hard. Day one, the curriculum development plan starting at the PLC Institute throughout the summer. So they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's exciting to see the progress.
Did we use any of the old maps?
I think there's some that they've been using. And to copy and paste, there's others that they're vetting, they might be tweaked. There's some courses that just have curriculum maps. For example, we got Algebra 1, we have a curriculum map, so it's good, we're going to catch everyone.
Good. So kudos need to goes out to Steve. I mean, he's kind of the silent guy behind the scenes that makes everything happen, from scheduling to what we're doing today, accreditation, state report cards, or school improvement plans, all that data piece. So on my behalf, I want to make sure we recognize Steve for his efforts. Sometimes he's the guy that nobody sees that keeps us afloat, keeps me afloat, I think administrators, so his work is valued. But what we talked about with all this PD that I'm celebrating wouldn't have happened without his efforts. His stress level of getting us ready for our accreditation visit, he has virtually put most of it together with the help of everybody, but he's kind of the cornerstone of a lot of the things. So Steve, I particularly appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Are we ready for ChatGPT?
It's going to be a moving target that we're going to be chasing. We even had our AI team, if you will, we had a presentation this morning with our induction teachers just to look at that. So we're going to have a committee. Mr. Oski might want to speak more on this, but we're planning on having a committee. We need to do something with the high school, especially with the middle school. Both the technology, all things technology, as well as AI. So I think it's a huge thing.
So I'm going to sit down with Gib. We're going to talk about that and assign a committee and start working on that, what that looks like. But it's ever changing. Even what I said in this morning, I referenced Chris Cox and said, okay, I'm going to meet with you weekly, so I know what's changing, and because it's there. Dr. Hansen, he said his meeting went really well, correct? Nobody ran out of the room wanting to leave, but AI is here. There's no doubt. So how we embrace it, we can't hide it, and so we need to figure out what it is, and it's changing every day. I did not realize the apps that you can add already to your already current system. And if there's one, there's probably hundreds, because everybody's going to start writing and programming, or AI is going to develop its own internal app and start selling it itself, however you want to reference artificial intelligence. But it is here, Randy. It's a challenge across the nation. It's not only going to be in public education, but it's going to be in every form of education, from universities, and right now probably not in kindergarten, but there'll be a day and age when I was sitting with a group of teachers going, God, I'm so glad I'm a kindergarten and first grade teacher. But there might be the day coming when they're exposed to it, right?
I thought they did a really nice presentation, of course. Very cool session. This talks your wages.
Randy, I'd encourage you to reach out to those guys and listen to that presentation. They gave us some live. It's clear. It's very informative.
If you'd like to be on the committee, we're always being members, so I'm the least.
That's just about Thank you.
Okay, Val, you're up. Celebrate all the good stuff.
Yeah, say two things. I got reminded of.
I was like that.
I know. I turned in my thing and thought, oh my gosh, I forgot all this stuff. So I did send a huge group of people to, well, not huge, a group of people to the WAVE conference, which is kind of Wyoming's special ed law conference, and it's their opportunity to share that information. And so we're getting that group together as well so that we can look at our processes and procedures. And so just wanted to thank all the people that went, and then a huge thank you to the entire special ed staff and regular ed staff too, but they were super flexible. We have some pretty large challenges coming in when school starts, and everybody was on board. We had paraprofessionals, some of them have been in the same building for many years, and they've said, we'll go wherever you need us. We'll do whatever you need us to. And a lot of them are the ones that are making that $15 an hour. And so, and teachers, I do have a teaching position open, but I have one that said, I'm on it, I'll cover, I'll do it until we find somebody good. And so, I mean, just everybody hit the ground running and is ready to do what it takes to make sure that those kiddos get what they need. So a huge thank you to them.
Thank you. Any questions?
Now, I was gonna ask, the position that was open is a teacher position.
Yes.
In what grade is that? Would that be?
It is at the middle school.
Thank you.
And that just became open last week.
Yeah, we had some, yeah. It was out of their control.
Thanks.
How about our business report?
The good news is we made $36,000 in interest last month.
Correct.
John?
One.
Thank you.
So, I didn't know if you got understood the document that I attached. It was the application for, getting a recapture loan. So I kind of explained kind of what we're gonna try to do with that loan. So, and no, we don't have the 100 listed today.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So Connie, if I could ask you, when I read through this, you know, we potentially owe $2.9 million, but you wanted to borrow 3.8. Is there an interest rate?
Yep.
Do they, so they lend you the money and no interest rate?
Correct.
That's pretty nice.
It is. It's very good.
They changed that years ago, where there wasn't interest.
So you're asking for like 30 to 40% more than what you need. I hope we don't need that much more.
Correct.
Because, you know, I looked at it as, I'm gonna go buy a new car, I need 50,000, I don't borrow 75,000.
Right. Well, we just don't know, because I predicted or estimated what we might get in revenue, but we don't know if we're going to get.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's why we're doing it.
So when we talked about it, so we're on the same page, conversation is absolutely, do we get what we want, but there's so many unknowns. So once you apply for it, and then go back, hey, we fell short, can we get some more money? Most districts in my conversation that are recapture districts, they go for the full amount and the loan amount is and that becomes their annual process. Because I asked that question, what you asked for what you think you need, they said no. The formula generates a certain amount, that's what we apply for to get that maximum amount, and then we have to understand we pay it back. And in some cases, if you're a district of $100 million, that's a lot of interest that can be built over a period of time. So that's kind of Dave, our approach.
So so say they give you the 3.8 million, when do you get it? Is it in a one lump sum or is it in installments? How do they do it?
I don't know, since this is my first application, so I don't know that. I'm assuming that we get it.
I'm assuming it was in one lump sum.
Yeah.
I think if in a one lump sum, you put it in the right bank. I mean, you just took the 36,000 in interest, you didn't. Well,
And maybe I missed the report, it's our timeline of back on this
December.
So it's what, 2 months long? 3 months?
Well, if you got it right away.
It'll be about 4 months.
4 months.
But I have to resubmit. I've already submitted it with my guesstimate as to what my guarantee will be. And then once we get the 100, we'll do 100, resubmit that, and we'll have to resubmit that actual ones.
So if I remember correctly, we should have hard figures by, said somewhere around the middle of this month. Which would be
Well, we should have gotten that final 100 in May.
I read you
June
said that
delays, but
you were,
we still don't have it.
you said you were figuring out what we were going to do back to the state. So I just want to be clear. So the state doesn't send you an invoice because we have, that's
Okay.
what would make sense.
So right now, we owe the 2.9 million, and we paid the $250,000. So that's what we have to pay back. So that's what it would end. But we're going to probably end up getting a tax shortfall because we didn't get all that money, because it was an estimate of what I predicted in March. Right, that's what they're going back. So we'll pay the entire $2.9 million back, but they'll give us about $1 million with the tax shortfall. So they're going to even look at the possibility of changing when that last 100 is certified. So it was certified March 31st, and so you still had, April, May, and June to go. So they're even looking at the possibility of certifying it in June. So it could be a little bit more accurate because predicting how much we're going to get. And the way we got our this last year was just all over the place. Sometimes it's 600% more than we got the year before, and sometimes it was 2% more than what we got before. So there was really no projection or any way to determine it.
Thanks for the clarification, because I thought, man, we don't want to borrow. We're paying interest on it, but you don't have to pay interest on it.
And as we stay a recapture district, that will get easier and easier to predict.
Thanks for answering.
Is there any hope they're gonna tell us someday when the WDE 100
They're
may?
hoping tomorrow. So.
I think they told you that once before.
So they're struggling. They've lost an employee. So they're.
So there was an email that was sent out that said they're not going to hold us to the deadline. So that piece of they have to be flexible.
Something very similar.
There has to be, because I'm not the only district in this boat. So we just happen to be fortunately that district that's transitioning from entitlement to recapture. That those handful of us that are in that process right now are probably more struggling than the rest. If you're an entitlement district, they've already said we're going to give you the money that you guaranteed last year, so they're just doing business as normal, knowing the state will catch them up.
And we will get our first sped payment tomorrow.
Any other questions? Thank you, Connie. Rec board, March is not here, so we'll go on. BOCES, they were, of course, just like everybody else, they're in their budget season, and we did finalize the budget last time, and we were at about the same place they were last year, a little under 10 million. Majority. Hey, do you have anything?
BOCES, no meeting, so
I haven't received it.
yeah, I haven't received anything. I thought we might be getting something from the split up between colleges, but
Leadership governance 2.5 has to deal with budget. We just approved our budget last month, and we hope next year our business manager will receive the 100s earlier, make the whole process a lot smoother and easier. I'd like to remind the board, we still need to develop priorities for the superintendent for our budget. It's just like what you were bringing up, Randy, paying our bus drivers more. That's a priority. Then we need to let Mr. Oscar know. We were saying that we want our class sizes to be this size. We need to let our superintendent. So we need to come up with a time to help Mr. Oski out and our business manager to know exactly what are the priorities of this board. So.
Can we make that our September work session? We
No.
got heavy loads, okay.
We're busy with doing superintendents.
Right.
Okay.
That could be part of the goal.
That's true. Just a reminder, we will be starting our leadership governance. We're going to start over, and we're going to be doing it a little bit different. Mr. Oski, I'm going to let you kind of explain where we're headed with this. And this is something that came out at one of our
So one of the meetings,
meetings
and Dr. Miller's already put the form together. It starts submitting, so you guys are doing just kind of a self-check monthly. It'll be a digital one, and then you can come to the table, and we're going to start that. I think we agreed to, Janice, in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we get through that process. So it's already developed. We'll sit down and work at it. We might introduce it during my goal setting as a superintendent, but that's where we'll start with that piece.
Okay. So look for that in your emails. All right. Consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second, please. That's it. Thank you. Discussion.
So Jan, I have a question. So Charles, on employment, when you hire someone from a different district and they have experience in that district, when they come to this district, do they bring all of that to the pay scale?
Yes.
It used to be 5 years, and they said no to that.
You bring, and does that apply to out-of-state people also?
So,
I don't know.
So that's a protocol that we've changed, and while I've been here, if they're teaching, we give them all their years of experience.
Even from out of state?
It's not required, but we try to incentivize. But in that piece, there's a committee that comes together. We have we have procedures that we actually go through and check off on what those look like. EMS is brought through EMS. We have a checklist of how we do it, a number of years classified, if it's similar, not similar. But if they're a Wyoming teacher, we accept all their years of experience. However, the funding model doesn't necessarily accept out-of-state experience. But while I've been here, we've accepted any teaching experience out of state.
It used to be 5 years.
I knew there was something.
That was many years ago. I don't know what I'm having. My voice keeps coming in and out. Sorry.
Let me back up. If they were at a certified institution and they were teaching, they have to be teaching in a public school setting, a certified institute or accredited institution. Experience.
Thanks, Fred.
Any other questions? Discussion? So all those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. All right. We are moving down to our action items. I'm going to need a little help with this one, the meal prices. Do I need to say what the price increase is? Because all I have here is meal price increase. Mr. Otsky, would you
So, Jan, it's usually as presented. As presented
okay,
by
as presented,
as presented by administration.
Okay.
So, and then we'll go into discussion, so it's very clear to the public, so we're not trying to hide things. But usually when you make a motion similar to this, it's for the recommendation.
Okay, I missed it. All right, thank you. So, may I have a motion to approve the meal price increase for the 23-24 school year? May I have a second, please? May I have discussion?
So I think the prices are really reasonable. I don't know if you were the one that was behind that or Connie, but whoever did, I think they're reasonable. And
so the three of us sat down and we talked for several hours. Yeah.
My only thing is maybe if we could do it in, let's see, I said this in the work session. This is August. If we could do it in July, is there a way so we can tell parents instead of the week? I don't know.
Part of her application that she does, she has to do the adult meal cost, and that's really kind of what brought us to this. And we talked a little bit about it last year about having the possibility, but when we came up and she came up with that calculation for meal cost, that's when it kind of started the process. So yes, we can make sure that we do that in July.
I just want to, just so the parent, and even though I know it's not that much, it's always nice to know that we're going to have to budget a little bit. And we haven't had an increase in 5 years.
That, as far back as I could find anyway. Yeah. When I looked back through some of Eileen's stuff, that I found the form like that from 2016, 2017. And I think the highest priced meal, which would have been the high school, was $2.85. So at some point thereafter we moved, or about thereafter we moved to $3.25.
Any other questions? Any other discussion?
I think it's really important that you talk to the board about why adult prices are where they're at. It's not under our control. It's under the formula real quick.
Right. So this is the formula here, and so so we have to put this is hard to see, sorry. The highest priced student paid student meal lunch price, which is $3.25 currently. And then we have to add the federal reimbursement rate for a paid lunch, which is 40 cents, and add 8 cents to that. And then add the USDA value received, which is, you see that, 0.295. So currently we should be charging adults 403 based off of the 325, and we've been charging them 4. So if we move up the highest student pay to 350, then those same amounts have to go in, and that means we have to charge them 428. So we have to and then same thing for breakfast with a few different less calculations, but the minimum we charge them is $2 or $1.98.
You have a lot of adults eat.
Not breakfast. No.
So, if food costs are up 17%, or only increasing
I'll be honest, Randy. Just this late game, it's stepping it up. That piece, food service is already not reimbursed, and we're reimbursing that, but everybody's struggling. So to raise it another 17%, and it's supposed to be operating in the green, but there isn't a food service in the state of Wyoming that's operating. So Ricky's creativity with what she's going to offer with extra stuff, is that a fair way to say it? The a la carte.
Which is, has some strict guidelines.
So it has guidelines too, but I mean, trying to also create some of that money and some of the profit that comes through that piece without overcharging. She's done a great job. We had a 2 or 3 hour meeting with how we're making up some of these revenues with some of these other sales. So it was baby steps, but it wasn't just this. There's some other avenues that we talked about. How can we create revenue to make that up? We have some local donors that we took into consideration that are willing to help pay with unpaid balances. So there were a lot of key factors we took into place, but we definitely wanted to step it up and not do a wow effect. This is going to be enough of a wow effect for 25 cents we felt. So that's the reason why.
And Buffalo rolled in on that. To be clear on.
But Randy, that's a great question. I hope we answered. So we took a lot of different aspects, but it's also we looked at creating more revenues through different resources to kind of maybe help absorb some of that cost. Some of that sparkling water.
Any other discussion? Questions?
Probably need to get Randy a picture for the front page.
All right. All those in favor for the JCSD 1 meal price increase as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Increase has been approved. All right, moving on. May I have a motion to approve the district, may I have a motion to approve the SCSD number 3 transportation request as presented. So moved. You have a second, please? Discussion.
It would sure be nice to have those 30 students on our body count. How come we're giving them all away so easily? Because I'm just a newbie. I don't know why we're doing this.
So first of all, when I looked at this, there's some on here not getting personal issues, but they're just Johnson County residents that live over the hill on Thompson Creek that don't ride that bus. So I don't know why they're on this list. There's also kids in here that have grandparents that live there or family, and some of them are employees of the district, so kids travel there. Again, it's yeah, but I will say we got 30 kids, but I don't count that off. But there's probably like 24, 23 that are coming. We have 7 coming this way from their direction, but we have 150 kids right here in our community that aren't here. So I mean, speaking of that, Travis, in that process is something we look at. It's about school choice and where we're at and what those services are. There are some details to some of these students in here that we'll have to go into executive and talk about. But the reality is it's kind of there's kids coming this direction too. And there's been some students at New West, there's some students coming to high school, to middle school. So there is a little bit of a change.
Chair. I had trouble with that last year too. Wondering why we weren't maybe fighting a little more to keep our kiddos. I mean, this year we're not getting very many from that direction, but sometimes we are. But what made me feel more comfortable with it was, I mean, it's a different school environment there. Every school's different, apples to oranges, and just knowing that if that school is what's meeting their needs, that means a lot to know those kids are taken care of, even if they're not staying with us. I don't know if that helps at all.
It does. Thank you. So for us, we need to determine what are they offering that we're not offering.
Size,
The size.
small.
And that's what it boils down
Well,
to.
I don't think you can compare the schools really. It's just some people like that, need that.
I get
Smaller
that, yeah.
environment.
Well, it's a smaller ratio. But I also agree with Travis's.
Oh, yes.
You can take half of
So
those.
can I ask the board that when we go into my goal setting, we can have some conversation in reference to protection of students' rights and a lot of information that I don't feel we should be second guessing why they're going there, because there are some other reasons that are going there. So that would be more of a conversation for executive.
All right. Any further discussion? So all those in favor of the transportation request for Sheridan County School District number 3, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. All right, moving on. The dean salary schedule. We have a motion to approve the district dean of student salary schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So we didn't have a schedule before, Charles?
No.
You want to know? I can tell you. Well, what do you think?
So inheritance and inheriting, what the process looked like, there wasn't a process. Okay. Whether it was good or bad, or how dean of students or how AEDs, that's been a lot of work on my part to figure out. So we have a formula for the future. So with that, there's always been a dean of students, but a salary schedule for that, or how it's placed on the formula. We're moving forward so that when we do have something like that, if there's a schedule so we can place people, it would be the same thing, part of pulling the ball off the shelf when we start figuring and revisiting administrator salary schedules, and it could be AD salary schedules. But right now, it's just a bunch of numbers that I tried to put together to figure out how many days and what they're doing. But ideally, I would like to be able to say, in my short term here, that we'd be able to have a schedule similar to this, so we know how to place.
So I think a fair question is, so how did you come up with this? Did you contact other districts? How did you come up with it?
So you have, as a district, have a formula sheet that generates numbers. It's based on formulas, 0.01, point whatever. And so we kind of use that formula, and Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, but we scaled it down from that, and then we used the same formula to create something lower, and then took that number and then put it into a salary schedule.
So explain again to what if they're a half-time teacher, half-time AD,
Yes.
how does that work on the salary?
Half-time teacher and AD, or half-time
I'm
teacher
sorry.
and students. So they get half of their salary for the teaching classes and half of the schedule.
So, and we'll ask it, is this compatible with districts of our size?
I'm going to say I don't know, because we basing it off the salary schedule that's adopted by this district with where that is.
And the other one, we had a company that did that came and looked at our salaries and stuff, but that was the one that they didn't look at. So that was curious.
No, EMS is coming back and looking at it.
But it was the other guy that came in.
Mitch Kraft came in and
Mitch Kraft, there you go, thank you. I just want to know if it's
No,
in the ballpark. It is.
a fair estimate to the. I have my gut feeling where it stands, but I'm not going to build that gut feeling up, so we'll wait finish this process.
I don't know how many times we'll get a dean students over the last couple of years. That's a lot. And are we still saying that you want the dean students at that person? And
But Jan, I got to come back. You as a board got to give me some direction. As a board, what do you want for a dean of students? What do you want the teacher ratio? What do you want an athletic? What do you want your athletic piece to look like? What's the percentage of your athletic budget? I mean, so when we say we, I have to honestly say, what do you as a board want? Because I don't want this to turn into a Charles show and where we're doing individual things. So this will be a good conversation to have. What do we want from the students and what is the expectation of that?
That's what most of us are not educators. We rely on you guys to give us input.
Absolutely, and we'll give you all that information, and as we go through that piece, what do we want? I want the best person for that job there, and what are the qualifications for that? And in that case, most of the times it would be some sort of administrative or some level of expertise to help with this.
Good. What
He handles discipline, he supervises school events, he helps oversee the building, he'll work with teacher growth, he can't officially evaluate teachers.
So we have one for each school.
Buffalo High School traditionally, I've told, has had a half-time position for a long time, whether it's BD, dean of students. In the past, they've had a teacher, dean of students, so there's been a dean of students in the high school.
Jim Mater was the first.
So does the dean and the counselor have to work in?
Yes. Last year, we had a dean of students / counselor.
I just think that's a position. Oh, that's. I think that's a position. Or seems good. That seems like principal / counselor job.
Again, I think that's what the priorities we help.
But we can pass a set salary schedule.
Yeah. I'm asking you to pass the salary schedule so we can continue to move forward so there's an easy way to determine it. If we don't have a dean of students, it will still be in the district books. If we do, see where it lands.
Call question. Okay. So all of those in favor of approving the district student salary schedule, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Did you get that? Okay. Thank you.
KC football.
KC football, okay. May I have a motion to approve KC football request for the 23-24 school year playing fifth graders?
So moved.
1 second.
Discussion. We did have a long discussion on this at the work session. Go ahead, Randy.
My question would be, in here, it said, or somewhere I read that you've yet to be able to contact the parents.
Oh, no, we contacted parents.
So how
There
many-
was one parent that you had.
There's one parent.
She has since gotten back to us.
How many fifth graders do you have that are?
I'll turn that over actually to Ms. Faber and Ms. London.
We have 5
Actually, we
fifth
have our coach
graders,
with us here.
5 fifth grade boys this year, and all of the parents when presented with this particular option and all the details that we're providing, said they would be more than willing to play or have the kids.
So with the board, I do apologize. Bridget kind of gave a quick overview. I passed this on to Jake a little bit, to the legal aspect of it, but her recommendation legally for that is there. But I want you to hear from these guys. They did a lot of work in this process, and it is my recommendation to move forward with their recommendation. But I also need to be transparent. Bridget gave her legal findings this afternoon, and I can give you a quick summary of what that is. But the reality is, with any sport, there's a liability. That's what it comes down to. There's a liability no matter whether it's football, but it's fifth graders, there's parameters set around it. You're not breaking any state laws. I mean, I'll just summarize it real quick. There's no state statutes that you're violating. With that, it's been common in small schools around the state that fifth graders, not only football, football is kind of the new era because of the number of kids, but fifth graders have been participating in sports. But to summarize it, there is a liability. I'm going to be, as there is in any sport, what that looks like. And the recommendation is a parent waiver be developed, which she's willing to do. Ensure the coaches and supervisors are aware of their duties and what they're supposed to be doing as supervisors. Ensuring coaches, supervisors, and players implement the following proper safety protocols, which comes back to just making sure they're taught how to play football correctly. It's known that football is a violent and high-impact sport. So it's just educating people, and then the parameters that they are presenting when fifth graders play are really established. Other teams know about it, and the coaches and, well, first of all, fifth grade parents, which you explained, they do know what they are. We might have to cancel a game if they fall without outside parameters. So that's a quick summary of what she is.
Chair. Yes. What's up for me?
Okay.
Thankfully, you guys did an excellent job in your research and in contacting people and finding out what the community and the parents want. I think it's important to vote for your constituents and what they want to see. I think it's also important to vote your conscience, and it's hard when those two things start to collide a little bit. I visited with a lot of people too. Some that were on the fence, a couple that were a hard no, most that were in favor, to be honest, especially with the parameters you guys set out. I think your parameters in your plan is perfect. I mean, I think it's perfect, especially on paper. However, I worry about when we get into some of those games. I don't think it would take much to knock out a lot of those perfect pieces. There's a couple of teams that stick out right away that I haven't always seen them do the right thing anyways. And I'm leery of putting that much trust in them to do the right thing with a 10-year-old. I'd like to hope they would. So what it comes down to for me is overall, I'm not worried about the legal risk. I understand others are doing it and it's working for them. I got to visit with Sleep a bit, that helped a lot. But I am worried about extending that physical risk onto fifth graders. I'm good with volleyball, basketball, track. In my mind, I can't handle a fifth grader taking a hit, and you can't 100% prevent all of that because it is a game and there are kids and there's a lot of humans involved and humans are messy. And so some of that is a personal take. I think if we can take one more year before we subject them to the possibility of those kind of concussions and damage. So that's where I am. I don't know how to express that the work you guys have done is excellent, but I still just land on the other side of it.
So how many 7th and 8th graders?
There are 5, 6 through 8th graders. There's only one 8th grader playing. There are 2 7th graders and 2 6th graders. 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 6th graders.
Because realistically, you're gonna forfeit a lot of people this year.
There's a chance of that. At the work session, Jan gave me a great idea of calling every week on Monday to make sure that the teams that we are playing are on board with not having 8th graders play against us, especially the great big ones. And so we have all committed that we will follow through with that. And if they are not willing to not play their 8th graders, then we will not go that day or that week to that game.
Well,
So yes,
if you only have 5 total, you need to fill a 6-kid roster, and you can only play a maximum of 2 at a time. And that means you can't have more than 1 kid out at a time, which is, we all see how a season goes realistically. Or if you, and this goes back to what we just heard, are you going, and this says nothing about y'all personally, but can we entrust that you're going to keep to, you know, we've got 1 kid out sick, we've got 1 with twisted ankle, now we can't play because of these guidelines, we'll just slip 2 more, you know, these kids want to play. That, you know, I don't, overall, I don't have much of an issue. One of my sons had 3 concussions by the time he was done with 7th grade football. So my concern is, are we prepared with equipment for a smaller head? Do we have, you know, something that can sustain impact for a smaller kid? You know, because we don't have the right equipment as it is for 7th and 8th graders. So 7th and 8th graders, we don't have the right equipment for their size. And now we're going to stick 6th and 6th graders in that same equipment. Don't see how it plays out. You know, just like Kristen was saying, basketball, volleyball, those are, you know, different sports as far as how we're not colliding at first into each other. Usually. So my initial tells me that, you know, I don't have a problem with this, just like I didn't have a problem with basketball. My guess tells me that
we do have very small equipment, just so you're all aware, because we have very small children already. We do have a 7th grader who is very much the size of a 5th grader and has been small his entire career. And so we already have a lot of small equipment. In fact, our 6th and 7th graders are probably smaller than our 5th graders this year. On that note, I totally understand the reservation when it comes to concussions. I had a child that played football. He never got a concussion in KC at 6-man. I don't know if that's because we're more spread out. We have had concussions there, I'm not saying that. I did have high school girls who however, that both had 2 concussions by the end of their career in basketball. So it is dangerous in every sport, so I totally get that. But we have thought about and are prepared for with our equipment to keep the kids safe. We've committed as a team, the 3 of us have put a lot of time and thought into this, but we have committed as a team to say, these are our parameters and we will live by them. Because we're not gonna put more than 2 5th graders on that field and risk that safety because they don't have the knowledge to play safely. So I brought my team with me so that you knew that we're all on the same page and we have put a lot of thought into this process. In the same aspect, I understand your reservations and we're going to go with what you guys recommend, but please know we've thought a lot about it.
So Randy, to ask that question, so as an ex-coach and a guy that coached 5th and 6th grade football, we have protocols of putting helmets on that have to fit correctly, and they answered that question about, yeah, our 5th graders are actually bigger than our 6th and 7th graders, and so whether they fit, so they answered the question that there's a protocol when they fit the helmets. As a former coach, sometimes it's not the helmet we struggle with, it's the shoulder pads or the tail pads or the thigh pad that's so big that they can't even get their pants on it. It looks like a big, sticking out here, and they got a stop sign as they're running out on the field. But that concussion piece comes back to, and it's the mouthpiece, getting that in, fitting the helmet correctly. But that's something that I feel the coach could do. And so there's expectations with that. Also, our helmets have to be recertified a certain percentage, so those helmet things go into some of that. So that's a great question, is what that looks like. But again, it's not the age. Sometimes it's the size and the talent. And you're right. We could run into an 8th grader that is an All-American. Honestly, we don't want to be playing that. But I've also ran into some 5th graders that can run circles around an 8th grader. So some of that comes to size and talent and where we're at. But it comes back to you making choices with where those kids are at and where they are. I'm sorry, but I've had an 8th grade quarterback run into the goalpost, going for a sprint and knocked himself out cold and couldn't play in the game. He was an 8th grader. So, I mean, there's a concussion that can happen at any time and place. But we will have to entrust that they'll make some good decisions.
And I'd like to say I have full trust in Coach. How many years have you been doing this?
26 or so.
And I trust him to make the right decisions on size and I know he knows how to teach technique. So I have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's really up to these guys, the team right here. Do you trust them? They're going to do the right thing. And the other thing to remember is they're just asking for money. And you'll see what you have.
How many games are we talking about?
6.
And that's the maximum.
And and if we can do
you get 4,
6,
you'll be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
I just think it's so hard when you completely eliminate a season. It really affects the kids that are playing and later on. And even if we have to cancel games, stop games, I think it's a better experience to at least get a few games of that experience out there on the field.
6-man football is a little bit different than 11-man. I mean, it's spread out. It's like a basketball game. You got to be more physically in shape.
Yeah.
So I have some thoughts too.
Any other?
Because when it comes down to it, as ADs and coaches, sometimes there's those circumstances. Okay, all right, can we just play our 5th and 6th graders because you have 5th and 6th graders? I mean, that's that protocol. Then they forfeit. Well, my 8th grader didn't get to play, or maybe there's something. There's no. When I say it's not a conference, so there's not a maximum number of games that you can have. It's still 6-man football and 1-8. So we have some flexibility with when and how we play with those other schools, right? So. I mean, if you have a team that comes up and says, my 2 8th graders are sick and I have 1 7th grader, can we play a 5th and 6th grade game? There's that flexibility of you're playing 5th graders and 6th graders against each other and doing some type of intramural league, or there's that potential the coach being on the field, calling the play, stopping it, and doing it with the referees. There's still some of those options, correct?
And you're comfortable with 5th grade?
I am. I just like you guys. I had some reservations as a parent and a coach, but when we sat down and came up with some of the parameters and my experience of knowing, the difference between an 8th grader and a 5th grader and some of the things that we came up with, I now feel comfortable. And as long as the other school is going to go along with it, I'm also very comfortable stopping the game if they're not going to fall in line with what we're having set up.
And the purpose that I said about calling every week is I don't want the coach to get on the bus and drive for 3 hours and get off to see the team, or he has to make the decision. That's too much to ask.
You don't want the coaches to drive it, you want the parents to drive 3 hours.
That's true. That's just a second, please. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work. It really shows. You did a good job. You thought long and hard. I, however, do have some reservations, and I feel like there's no fears. Mr. Oski, question for you. This that was presented to us tonight. You shared all these considerations with this team or what was.
I have shared it with
with
Jake once I got it, and then we'll share it with you.
Okay. And I mean, unfortunately, and I do apologize, I didn't have time to thoroughly read through this, so I appreciated Mr. Austin summarizing it for us. However, I'm just looking through some of the things, and as I'm not going to repeat what everyone has said, as far as like size and concussions and all that, because we all have our thoughts on that. But one of the things that I just looked and typical fifth grader is 10 to 11 years old. An eighth grader is 13 to 14, and that's, to me, that's a pretty big gap. And again, Casey's a small school. I'm sure most of the kids know one another when they begin at 14. And with that age gap, there's a lot of things. You've got bus rides, you've got locker rooms, you've got practices, you've got team you've got a lot of those things. And so just want to bring you through work and this kind of feel here's somebody else that needs a little bit.
Dave, you want to go or should I ask you?
So if the opposing teams are not going to play,
Correct.
right? So does that mean we're going to be abiding by the same rules?
So we've asked them to not play their large eighth graders and no more than one on the field if they have a smaller one. Every team I've talked to has said either no eighth graders or there is one small eighth grader just like ours. In that aspect, encampment is a large team, and they have agreed only 6th and 7th graders against us. So far, we have Ten Sleep and we have Riverside that are going to compete against us, and they are both playing 5th graders as well. So they've agreed as well that they will be keeping the sizes the same. So no 8th graders that are larger than our current 8th grader, and no more than one of theirs on the field at the time.
Again, I'm not trying to.
No, you're fine.
So if you're an average or large 8th grader, you're just SOL in the season.
On this, yeah, against us, yes. This season.
And that's another reason that I don't like this. It's not so I think football is probably one of the most important activities that kids can play in. So this is one of those that I don't think that it's an easy thing, and it's,
They hadn't put all this work into really throwing conduct. I would trust their decision. Go ahead, Chance.
Madam Chair, I want to share a perspective with the board. When I was in 5th grade, I could pick up an 8th grader in each hand. You all are imagining we're going to send Pee Wee Herman out here to play Michael Jordan or bigger men. That's not what's going on. The parents that are signing these consents, sending me in 5th grade out to the 8th grade team wasn't a problem for the 5th graders. So for one, keep in mind, we're trying to judge this as good for all. We're talking individual students whose parents can look and say, oh no, we can't send you out there yet. Or yes, you can. The other thing I want to share is when I was in school, there was no tackle football until you got to 7th grade. My brother's class started with Pop Warner. They went full contact and full pads in 5th grade. Their team went to state every year he was in high school. We never made the cut. These kids need some experience. Their parents know if they're physically able or not. To take that choice away from the parents is, in my opinion, not our position. They have an option. Each parent can say yes or no. They know their kids. We don't even know how big we're talking. If the kid comes in here and looks down on me, then it's fair. Let him play. So don't let fear scare you out of it. The parents and the coaches know what's good for these kids. They're going to play, and the experience is significant. It's important.
Wait just a second. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I wasn't even thinking just the size of the kid. I was thinking how old their brain is and how early we expose their brain to the possibility. My stance isn't at all because I don't trust the three people here. I trust them immensely. I just also know that football is a game and things can go.
It's reset,
Yeah,
for sure.
and what you said about parents, I do agree with that. I mean, I think the parents' vote is the most important vote. I also worry that in a situation like this, it could feel kind of high pressure as a parent too. You know, I've always been small. I know you put pressure on sometimes if they're middle schoolers. Come on, you got to play football, or we're not going to have a team. I don't want any of them to feel pressure to put their fifth grader in either.
I know some mama bears who thought I was about to get in your kid's face, you tear my head off. And I know it. So, okay, but yeah, I understand it.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's about stop. And I don't think it's about taking some choice away. You know, just because you're the size of you and in fifth grade doesn't mean you should play high school. Even as a parent. I think at some point we have to have some, you know, some type of just regular structure. And if, you know, KC's is a very small school and you don't have what they have to build a team in a full contact sport. If we don't, you know, next year, if we don't have enough fifth graders to fill the void, are we going to go down another? You know, you're playing with kids. I mean, they're not even in the same school. So if the high school team doesn't have enough kids, it would be like bringing in a sixth grader. I mean, are we going to do that? Where do we draw the line, and then are we going to have a line, or are we just going to year by year just?
That's what it is.
That's what I don't want. I don't like.
I can tell you that our numbers coming up after this year show that we will definitely have a team after this. This is our 1 year that we're showing in the next 4 years. Difficulty having boys in junior high.
But it's reversed with the girls.
It is right now. It'll be our problem next year, probably. However, we thought about this group going up when they're in high school, and when these fifth graders are eighth graders are going to be seniors, and that will be a big enough team in high school to play. So we won't run into this problem when this group of kids is in high school. And we've got many years of classes of boys coming up with nothing but boys. So we're asking for the 1 year exception because we know that this group of kids has that ability. And then we did put the strict stipulations on it. And we know it's not something we're going to need to continue. We don't want to continue.
I don't know if it makes any difference, but Montana, South Dakota, a couple other states, they are now allowing eighth graders playing boys.
It's actually a conversation that's been going through Washington.
And then it is going, it has to when
That's a whole other topic.
But I'm just saying, that's you know, that's the world we're in. Do we have any other discussion? Okay.
I think it's good discussion, so I appreciate the honesty at the table as a superintendent. My recommendation, again, to you as a board is to support their recommendation.
All right. All those in favor of approving the KC football request for fifth graders to play for 1 year, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye.
3 or 4.
Well, we have to have it. So I guess it's voted down.
Motion and approved.
Right. Motion is not approved. All right, our last one, motion to approve the WHSAA participation application.
So moved.
Next second, please.
I'll second.
Discussion, this is something we have to do every single year. So this is
Right.
just, any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the WHSSAA participation application signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, from the board. I would like to say again, in September, we will be doing at the work session a goals for our superintendent. And that will be an executive session because that is a personnel question. So we will be having a special meeting in our work session in September. Anything else from the board? 4-day school week. Roski?
Okay. So Dr. Hansen gave a great preview from where we're at, just kind of an update. That document is there. And again, this committee is not put together to say yes or no to it. It's to gather the information, and what we talked about after the work session is continuing the journey and presenting you with the facts to determine where we're headed and why we're doing this is based off when I came into this position. I think some things that happened at the high school with their schedule, the trimester, and then developing a calendar. So it's just kind of putting the information together to see if the 4-day week works for Buffalo. And so we'll continue the journey. Dr. Hansen did a great job of presenting. The committee's there, but we felt in fairness to everybody that's put in time and the community members or volunteers that we've challenged, if that's a proper word, Mike, to come back with some information. We will present that to you.
That was a very good presentation. So when do you think that committee will meet? The big committee? Did you give them the homework assignment?
Within a month, that large group of community members will be back together. It's a little tricky finding the right time to get as many people as we can in the right place. So once we get that lined out, let all the kids get back to school, people get their legs underneath them, and we'll come back together.
Any other discussion on that?
Yeah, I want to share a little story with you. You guys may appreciate or may not appreciate it. So I'm at the ranch over at Barber Creek, and anyhow, I get off the interstate, and this guy's waving me flag down there. There's a problem. So anyhow, I stopped to see what I could do to help. And this, he's trying to talk to me, and I can't understand him. And you got to talk to this girl. So this little girl gets out of the car. She's 8 or 10 years old. They're Japanese, Chinese, whatever. And she tells me in English, she says, where's the closest gas station? And I said, the closest one in Gillette. It's 18 miles away. And she says, well, we can't make it that far because we can only go 10 kilometers. And she's talking to her dad in Japanese or whatever it is, and we're conversing. But what really got me about it was here this girl was 8 or 10 years old. And I finally called the neighboring ranch, and they said, send them up here, we'll give them some gas. But what really impressed me was what do they do different with education that she could speak 2 languages fluently by that age? And she might have been the smartest girl in Asia. I don't know, but I was so impressed with it. And I was asking educators, what do they do? Do they go to school year round? You guys know? Any idea? No, I struggled with English when I was at home. I still do. But I thought it was a story I wanted to share with you. It was this little gal was something else. I'm telling you.
So the biggest, or probably the main question I get asked when people hear this and they ask me about it is why? Why are we even talking?
Because Randy, as a community, when we did the survey, the interest was there. So all we're trying to do is, because I'm on the other end of the stick, the people that said we filled out a survey, said there's an interest, and you did nothing about it. So when people are asking that question, this didn't come out of just Charles's wisdom and say, hey, we need to do a 4-day week. It's because of the data in both the calendar or the information that was presented before I got here, and then when we tried to put a 2-day or 2-year, not 2-day. We're not going to a 2-day week.
Don't quote that.
A 2-year calendar. That survey came out with, again, why we thought we were looking at a 4-day week. So that 60 to 70% of people that are asking that question in the survey, when people are asking why, it's because that's what the community asked, or the majority of people that filled it out said, why don't we look at it? So that's all we're doing. We're just following kind of what the survey said, and saying, okay, we'll go out, we'll seek the information, we'll bring the data to the table. And I think there's some great questions from the board. Is this academically? What does it mean academically? What does it mean overall? And the approach that I like about it is we're not taking sides. We're going to present the facts as they are, because there's negative and there's positive in this process. So when people have asked me that question, I come back to, well, that's when we look at the survey and there's 65% of you that said, why don't we take a look to see if that meets the needs of the kids? We're kind of following that direction. Is that fair? Maybe it's the 40% that didn't fill it out, that didn't see it, but just kind of in general, it's
50% are employees at school. I don't know.
No, Mike has some good data that shows.
The presentation, I point you to go and listen to the presentation because we discussed it for how long, an hour and a half, and there was some really, really good points in the data that we brought up.
And I'll speak. When we say teachers, there's some that are for it and some that are against it. It's not a unanimous one way when we look at it, which I think was an interesting data piece. I've had some conversations with some JCSD employees, and they are flat, not for it at all. And then I've had some that says, what are you thinking? It's a no-brainer. You need to get it done. So, I mean, it's on both ends. Because there are pros and cons. Let's be very clear. But the only way it's successful in the community is if it's good for the community and there's a true buy-in.
Any other discussion? Okay, our next work session will be work session / special meeting will be at 5:15, and the next regular board meeting will be September the 11th in KC.
Absolutely.
That's right. Anything else for the good cause? Principals, good luck to you.
Thank you.
2 days.
So with that excitement, anybody have anything you'd like to invite the board to this week or next week? Other than we're setting up for the Red Kettle Challenge and we're going to win it this year. So
You're going to tie Jan up or what?
Yeah.
Back to school Monday,
Okay.
KC, 4:30 to 6. We'd love to have you.
Same thing, 12 to 2, CCMS Monday.
CPS 12 to Monday, 21st.
10 to 12 Mallard, Monday.
Camp Roberts.
6 o'clock Wednesday night.
Flip burgers tomorrow night.
You're writing all these down?
Smash burgers.
Smash burgers.
Bring some beef.
Charles is going to give smash burger lessons tomorrow night.
How many people have had a smash burger?
Yes, I know.
What is Thursday? What is the time schedule?
Thursday, we will begin by inviting people in around 7:30, kick off about 8:15, somewhere in that neighborhood, because gathering people up, getting in the auditorium. And then we will go from that point to almost 6:30 that night. So
wait a minute.
We're going to be
You said 8 o'clock and you said 6:30?
So 8 o'clock in the morning till 6:30 that night. You are more than welcome to come up and join us at VHS Auditorium with our guest speaker.
So that's the guest speaker.
Guest speaker will be first thing. Well, I'll start out at 8, so you don't want to come to that. So then you can start at 9 with the guest speaker. And then he'll present, and then he works with coaches, and then he's going to work with student athletes, and then he's going to, or works with leadership, student athletes, coaches, and then he's going to do a community presentation from 5:30 to 6:30. In addition to that, though, we have other trainings in other buildings that are going on that afternoon.
And if you come to the community meeting and you want to hang out at Buffalo High School from 6:30 to about 8, we'll be doing freshman open house. Same.
Anything else?
Wednesday, I'm throwing the switch at Meadow Arts.
So Charles, is there a way that you could send something to the board about everything that's happening, or maybe it's already in there?
It is, I'll just resend that schedule just for that day though, I'll just.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
All the other ones.
Or the
Tuesdays,
different ones too, like
yeah,
Lori
the
has a barbecue, can you give us those
Yeah,
different
so,
dates and the,
So what I invite you to do is send a calendar invite to all the board members and just say Board of Trustees and then they'll know.
We want to put more work on you guys.
We got
Thank
this.
you.
Didn't have anything going on this week, did you?
So it just
Anything
comes
else?
up, Board of Trustees and email. What is the group email for the whole
Board
board?
of Trustees.
Okay.
What's that?
Anything else?
The board,
We
just
are
type
adjourned.
board.
Thank you all.
That over, you had something else.
Just